Welcome to a very special episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I am your host, Karen E. Osborne, and have you been with me for 2 whole years? A year? Anyway, just so glad you're back. Glad to have you. I'm the author of Getting It Right, Tangled Lives, and Reckonings, and in September comes out True Grace. 4 books, like, woo! I have a very special guest today, who's laughing at me, Fred Rutman. And he has, I've never heard of this before, a medical trauma memoir is what he has written, and that came out in March. And it says here that it's a book about his extraordinary health journey, and he shares his resilience, overcoming the odds, and living to tell the tale with a side of humor and a dash of sarcasm. Just a dash. The summer I died 20 times. My goodness, welcome, Fred, who calls himself repeatedly dead Fred. You see his name under his photograph. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations. 2 years on a podcast is phenomenal. So few people make it that far. And a 4th book? Wow.
I didn't know that 2 years for a podcast is phenomenal. I actually have people booked through to November.
Okay.
So I'm going to make 3 years, I think.
For sure.
Let's start with, what was the illness? Just tell us, what happened?
Well, that was the problem, is they couldn't figure out what the illness was. So they initially thought I was just passing out or fainting randomly. And almost every time I would pass out, I hit my head and obtained a concussion. And it took them maybe 4 to 5 months to figure out that I had a condition called a full AV block, a full atrial ventricular block, which is the nerves in your heart that tell the atria and the ventricle to pump blood and keep you alive. So those were slowly dying off, and my heart was stopping. So your heart stops. It's very different than a heart attack.
Just stops.
Your heart just stops. Your blood pressure goes to 0, no blood and oxygen to your brain, and you're clinically dead. So, most of these episodes were at least 30 seconds. I think that's the definition of clinically dead. So you're not breathing or no heartbeat for that period of time. And some were closer to 5 minutes. So there was a lot of brain trauma and PTSD and all sorts of things like that. They eventually deemed it a sudden onset full AV block, because this is a condition that usually only happens to men in their 70s, and I was in my 40s, so they still have no idea why this happened to me. Your heart has all these, your body in general has all these backup systems. So my backup systems were also dying. So that's why instead of kicking in really, really quickly, I often lingered in being repeatedly dead Fred.
Wow. So you said that it took the doctors a while to figure this out. And I read on the back of your book jacket that the doctors had to level up, to figure this out. So kind of what was that like? Did you have like a whole bunch of docs, peering at you every 2 minutes? And what was that like?
It was frustrating, but I was also so battered. I really didn't understand what was happening to me and how serious it was until finally a doctor came into the room. This is probably after the 16th time it happened, and said, "Holy swear word, your heart's stopping. Like, you've got a real problem here." And up until that point, they weren't really taking me seriously. They were thinking, they kept trying to prove I was having a heart attack. And, after like the 10th, 12th, 15th time you test for that and it shows up negative, maybe you need to start looking for other things.
Yes.
And, if doctors don't see it on a test, it doesn't exist for the most part.
Did it take a lot of advocacy on your family's part or your part to get them to pay attention, or did you have
No,
to
it just
fight for the diagnosis?
to a degree, but once they figured it out, it was full speed ahead. But even then, they didn't take me seriously. So they knew my heart was stopping. And the solution for this is to implant a pacemaker, which is pretty common these days. They
Hmm.
do, 800,000, 900,000 a year. But they should have like taken me into the OR at that point. And it was,
Mm.
another 3, 4 days. I can't remember the exact number. Um, and then I had a number of incidents where my heart stopped again while I was waiting for the procedure. And I think it was, the 18th or 19th time they said, maybe we should move him into the cardiac ICU, and keep
Wow.
him like, really under microscope. So, um,
My goodness. So, why? So, okay. So this incredible thing happened to you,
mhm,
and they finally figured it out. What
mhm.
made you think I should turn this into a book?
I didn't really think I should. I was trying to journal a little bit because there's no roadmap for recovery from what's happened to
Mm.
me. Um, but I knew that every time I told somebody my story, they were pretty blown away. So a friend said there was a short story writing contest coming up,
Mm.
but the deadline was like 5 or 6 days or something. And I said, well, I've been in marketing. I used to write for my school newspapers and stuff like that. I have a bit of a gift, he says modestly. And so I thought, well, I'll try this out. And I blew past the word limit very quickly. And I realized I had a real book if I could figure out how to write a book and get it published. So I
Wow.
didn't I didn't enter the short story contest, um, but
You
I
just
ended
kept
up,
going.
yeah.
Hi, I have a quick question for you. Do you like murder mysteries? I have one that's a page turner. Tangled Lives. Two women, one older, one younger, get together to solve a mystery. I hope you'll give it a try.
Ahead in your questions. I
Yeah,
apologize.
let's talk about the no, that's all right. We'll talk about the sequel in a minute. So you decided to write this book about your journey,
Mhm,
and because people seemed interested,
mhm,
what did you want people to take away? So now, everyone is watching today. We have an audience on Facebook and YouTube and on my web page. And so
mhm.
they're listening, watching, and you want them to pick this book up. What would you hope that they would get out of this book?
Well, I hope they get some inspiration that whatever situation there is, there's a probable solution. It might not be evident to you right at the moment. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, um, he, I'm paraphrasing here, he said, if you have hope, you can conquer almost anything.
Hmm.
And with embedded in that is you have to ask for help. You cannot be afraid to ask for help. There are people who want to help you. You probably haven't even met most of them, but people are generally good, and asking for help can really help you along your journey.
That's a powerful message, Fred.
Thank
That
you.
there are people, yeah. So it's so often that people don't know how to ask for help, don't know who to ask for help,
Mhm.
see it as a weakness. So that's a powerful, powerful message. So before you tell us about the sequel, because I want to hear about that, how are you feeling today? How are you?
I'm generally pretty good. I've gained a little bit of weight over the last 2 years, as many people have.
Mm.
So I think that's going to start coming off in the next week or two. Um, I know that because I'm going back to seriously intermittent fasting, which is what changed my life, and I'm also going to jump ahead, and that's in the books I'm reading right now, perpetually. Um, but I feel really good. I don't have an ache or pain in my body. And I grew up in Canada playing hockey in -30 weather outside, playing football, playing rugby. At one point, I was 340 pounds. I mean,
Ooh,
my body was really beat up. And now I don't have an ache or a pain. My sleep apnea has gone away. My diabetes is reversed. It's just an
wow.
unbelievable transformation.
And you owe this transformation to,
Intermittent fasting.
yeah.
That's the that's the thing almost all doctors know about, and none of them recommend it. I'm fortunate that I had a cardiac team that were on the fasting bandwagon, and they introduced it to me. And then through my work wife, um, she introduced me to a lady named Jen Stevens, um, and she's on my always read book, um, Fast Feast
Fast,
Repeat.
feast, repeat.
So she is my fasting guru. She wrote the foreword to my book.
Cool.
And
That's wonderful. I'm an intermittent faster, so I was interested. I don't know if I do it right. I stop eating at about 4 or 5 o'clock, and I don't eat again until breakfast around 9 o'clock. Is that intermittent? Is that
it's a
basically it?
version. There's
It's a version.
so many. Yeah.
Ah.
So offline, if you have questions for me, happy to answer any questions.
Okay. And that goes for you too. After Fred tells you how to be in touch with him, you can
Mhm.
ask him questions about it as well. So you said there's a sequel.
Yes. So in 2018, I went through a number of pacemaker failures, which is a pretty rare event.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think in November, I just had my fifth or sixth pacemaker put in since 2009 because I don't know, they buy them at the dollar store or something. They just they don't last. Um, so I had a very unique surgery. It was, yeah, it was just weird. Um, so things kept happening to me after 2018, after this miracle surgery. And I actually had two functioning pacemakers at the same time working simultaneously. And I think I was one of 8 people in the world that they had figured out something like this for.
Hmm.
So I've had a number of other heart issues and things like that. So it's this summer I died 20 times, continues.
It continues
And
the story. Yeah. Wow. And when
yeah.
is that one coming out? Or you
Oh, I
have
don't know.
finished it?
It's an ongoing,
You're still working on it. I
yes.
understand. We always have works in progress and sometimes 2 or 3 in our heads. So I understand.
I'm also thinking of writing a cookbook.
Cookbook. Oh,
Yeah.
how cool.
Yeah. For repeated cooking for repeatedly dead people. So
Now, I bet that one's going to be a really good seller.
hopefully
So,
people will eat it up.
oh boy. Dum-dum. So, tell us about your reading life. So, you showed us one book that you said you keep close to you all the time.
Mhm.
What else do you like to read?
I read a broad spectrum. I don't read as much as I'd like to because I read a lot of articles off the internet.
Mm,
Um, but I was a business professor, so I have an ingrained desire to know things marketing and finance and along that line. So it's a I've I recently read The Billion Dollar Whale. It's sort of like the world's greatest Ponzi scheme, if you can say that,
mm.
uh, by somebody from East Asia who just like bilked all the big banks and everybody out of billions and billions of dollars.
Mm.
Um, it's for a finance person who knows how the banking system should work, that this clown like was able to get away with this for so long and got so many people to cover his butt. It's mind-boggling.
Wow.
Um, I also read a book called Red Notice. A red notice is what Interpol issues when they have a worldwide alert for somebody.
Oh,
And there was an American, I'm sorry, I forget his name. That's one of my ongoing memory problems. Um, he started going into the Soviet Union, or what's now known as Russia,
Mhm.
when everything was opened up, and he was making money hand over fist, and the oligarchs and a certain ruler didn't like what he was doing, and they pulled whatever strings. In the book, they claim certain people that were involved in this were assassinated,
Wow.
and he had a red notice slapped on him by, Putin, I guess Putin and his cronies, and they tried to tear his life apart.
Wow, and he lived to tell it
He did.
because so many didn't.
Hmm.
Yeah, wow. Those
And
both
what?
sound fascinating. You have another one?
Yeah, it's a brand new one that was recommended to one of my beta readers, and it's called "How to Argue and Win Every Time." So
Mm.
this is one of the superstar lawyers in the United States, and I think he was the first lawyer to defeat Rudy Giuliani in a court case.
Oh,
So
right.
you'll have to fact check me on that, but that's what I think.
Yeah. And say the name again. It's How to
How to Argue and Win Every Time.
Every Time. Excellent. Well, I thank you so much, Fred. It's just been a pleasure meeting you. And I hope
Thank you.
all of you are enjoying this. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, they want to ask you about any of the things that we've talked about, or just want to be able to get your book, what's the best way for them to be in contact with you?
They can find me on my Instagram page, which is repeatedly dead Fred, um, or they can email me at repeatedly.dead.fred@gmail.com.
Excellent. All right. So I hope you will do that. I hope you will follow Fred on Instagram. I hope you will follow me as well. I'm on Facebook, Karen E. Osborne, author. I'm on Instagram, Karen E. Osborne. The E is important because there are other writers out there named Karen Osborne. And I'm also on YouTube, Karen E. Osborne. And you can find me on Amazon on my author page as well. We thank you so much for watching us. I hope you will be in touch with Fred. I hope that you will follow him. I hope you'll try his book. Thanks, everybody.